Hello everyone, I hope you're having a lovely day today. I've just said that differently to how I usually do and it's thrown me off. No idea what's going on with this. It's due a wash and we're going for some kind of Hermione and Chamber of Secrets / Hagrid looking thing. Yeah, it's a good day. So this week I passed my watch hours. Like, you know that, have I done? This week I passed my watch hour number I need to hit before I get monetized, and I'm just so happy about that. And I'm also, I think I'm on like 780 subscribers now, so if anyone can help me get to that 1,000, that would be incredible. I also wanted to put a little warning that there's talk of self-harm in this case, so if that's something that upsets you, then please watch a different video. Get your cuppers ready. So this is the case of a little girl called Elizabeth Olten. Elizabeth Olten was born in Jefferson City in Missouri in the United States on December the 15th in 1999. Her mum and dad were Patricia, or Patty as she was known, and Dale. She was a 4th grade student in Pioneer Trails Elementary School in Jefferson City. Like most 9-year-old girls at that time, she absolutely loved Hannah Montana, she loved Taylor Swift and music, she loved animals, she loved playing with dolls, dressing up. She was described as being a really girly girl. She loved the colour pink, she loved cats. She'd even play outside in the snow or in the mud in little frilly dresses. On the 21st of October in 2009, which was a Wednesday night, Patty, Elizabeth and her 2 siblings, Anthony and Stephanie, were all just at home. Patty was making dinner for the kids and apparently Elizabeth was learning her lines because she was going to be in a play in school. So she was just learning those and dancing about and apparently irritating her brother. So it was about 5 o'clock and they were all just kind of settling down after the day, and as I said, Patty was going to cook some dinner for the kids and herself. But around that time, their 6-year-old neighbour Emma came to ask if Elizabeth could go out and play with her. And originally Elizabeth's mum Patty said no because she was just doing dinner and it was getting late. And the girls just begged and pleaded because they always like to play together, they like to play dolls, and Emma had a few siblings too. The 2 families would often play together. The girls were just begging and pleading with Patty to let them go, and Patty said okay then, but just for an hour, so you got to be home by 6. So Elizabeth and Emma left the house. Even though Elizabeth and Emma only lived about 4 houses down from each other, there was a lot of wooded areas in between their houses. So back at home, it's coming up to 6 o'clock and there is no sign of Elizabeth coming back. So Patty waits for a little bit longer, and shortly after 6 she becomes really worried because at 6:30 it starts getting dark, and Elizabeth wasn't the kind of person to just wander around in the dark by herself. She was scared of the dark and she was only 9, so obviously it was really concerning that she wasn't home yet. So Patty just picks up the phone and calls over to Emma's family, and their nan, who they lived with, picks up and she just says, oh well, Elizabeth was never here. So obviously Patty is extremely scared by this. Around 6:15 they started looking for her in the immediate areas surrounding the house, but then when they couldn't find her after 45 minutes they called the police and reported her missing. It was so out of character for Elizabeth to just be in the forest by herself this late, so they knew that something was wrong pretty much straight away. Luckily the police came in about 15 minutes and started to help with the search. In the area that they lived, St. Martin's, there was only about 1,000 people and everyone knew everyone because there were so few of them. So by about 10 o'clock that night, about a third of the community were looking for Elizabeth. They checked Emma's house first, but of course she wasn't there, so they started searching around everywhere else in the wooded areas surrounding the houses. Even with all the people out trying to search for Elizabeth, it was October, so it was pitch black by the time everyone was out, and it was getting really hard to search all the wooded areas. It was really hilly, there were rocks, there was obviously trees and grass and bushes everywhere. It was just really hard to try and look for someone in all that. They had firefighters, police, helicopters, the FBI, they had dogs, but they couldn't find her anywhere. Since Elizabeth was due back home at around 6 o'clock, since she'd been missing, and Patty had been trying to ring her, but it had just been going straight to voicemail because Elizabeth had taken a phone out with her that day. They were able to ask the mobile phone company or the cell phone company, wherever you're from, for an emergency ping, which is where it pings the towers nearby to see where the phone is, and it can give the phone a location. They were able to get 3 pings from the phone before it completely died out. They hoped that Elizabeth would be with her phone that was pinging in the wooded area and she'd be alive and well, but there was the possibility that Elizabeth had been snatched by someone on her way back from her friends or on the way to her friends. They tracked down all the local registered sex offenders to see if they knew anything or if any of them had taken her, but nothing came out of that. So on the 22nd of October, Elizabeth still wasn't anywhere to be seen. This was now Thursday and it was almost 24 hours since she'd gone missing. And the detectives wanted to know exactly what had happened on that night, like why had Emma returned home and why was Elizabeth nowhere to be seen. Emma was interviewed by the FBI and she was asked what had happened between, her and Elizabeth, what had gone on, had anything suspicious happened. But Emma just said, we were playing for about an hour and then Elizabeth started walking home and that was the last time that she'd seen her. So they were asking Emma questions, they were asking her to tell it again, and eventually Emma started adding things to her story. Emma said that her and Elizabeth had been playing outside and Emma had actually been stuck in some thorn bushes, so she was screaming and crying for her older sister Alyssa to come and help her. Alyssa was Emma's 15-year-old half-sister and she also had 2 twin 11-year-old half-brothers. So with Emma now mentioning her sister Alyssa in this story, the detectives wanted to speak to her because she might have been one of the last people to see Elizabeth. Alyssa admitted to skipping school that day and she said that she was aware of Elizabeth's disappearance, but she knew nothing about it. She didn't know where she was, nothing to do with it. And they were fine with this. Alyssa seemed calm and forthcoming. Meanwhile, there were still volunteers searching all of the wooded areas and they came across something that they wanted to tell police about. It looked like a grave that had been dug in the woods and obviously they were terrified. They thought maybe Elizabeth was in this hole. So they brought Alyssa to the scene, probably to ask her about where she last saw Elizabeth, and when they were there, they heard her say something really strange. Alyssa said, "Oh, I dug that hole." When she was asked why she dug the hole, she just said, "I like digging holes, and when I find dead animals, I like to bury them." So they were worried. They thought, is Elizabeth in this grave? But they looked through it and there was nothing in there. Elizabeth was not in that grave. But still, Alyssa being one of the last people to potentially see Elizabeth, she became a person of interest. They were given permission to search Emma's home where Alyssa lived too, and when they came up to Alyssa's room, they found what they described as a spine-chilling sight. The walls had all kinds of poems and quotes on there. Some of it was written in pen, other parts were written in blood. There was a poem written on the wall about self-harm, which included the quote, "I cut to see blood because I like it." Alyssa's friends from high school knew that she was self-harming and I think they tried to speak to her about it a few times, but it didn't really help. On one of the walls there was a sketch of a person which had slashes all over it, and next to it was the name Emma, which was obviously Alyssa's younger sister. There was also cards and letters taped to the bedroom wall from Caesar Bustamante, and Alyssa's name is Alyssa Bustamante, so this was from her dad. And her dad was in prison, but he was writing to her and she was saving all of his letters. They took muddy clothes and shovels from Alyssa's house and they also seized Alyssa's diary. When they started reading through the journal entries, they became increasingly concerned about Alyssa's state of mind. A lot of the journal entries included fantasies about killing people. One included burning a house down with all the people in it. It was just all really angry and hateful writing. And the last journal entry was October the 21st, which was the day Elizabeth disappeared. But this journal entry had been scribbled out in blue pen and they could only make out the very last bit of the entry. It said, "Now I've got to go to church, lol." Alyssa Bustamante was born on the 28th of January in 1994, which makes her 10 days younger than me, which, I don't know, it's always a bit weird when someone's like so close in birth dates to you. Her mum, Michelle Bustamante, was a teenager when she had her and she had a history of drug and alcohol abuse. She was also arrested for drunk driving and that led to charges and jail time. Her dad, Caesar Bustamante, is serving a 10-year jail sentence for assaulting someone. Obviously, her and her 3 younger siblings didn't have the best home life, so in 2002, her grandmother Karen Brooke became their legal guardian. So for almost half her life, she'd been raised by her nan, and her nan was amazing with them. She was, gave them really good care, gave them everything she could. They had quite a religious household and Alyssa would attend church groups and, youth church groups. She was very involved in that. And in school, she was getting A's and B's. She was a really good student. She was in no way slacking in that area. In 2007, Alyssa tried to commit suicide. She spent 10 days in a psychiatric hospital and then she was prescribed Prozac, which is an antidepressant. Over the years she was given both inpatient and outpatient treatment from the hospital. The darker side of Alyssa's personality tended to come out more online. She had a YouTube account with the name Okami Cage, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is Japanese for wolf shadow. On YouTube she uploaded videos of her and her brothers mostly just messing around with each other and mimicking Jackass stunts. If anyone hasn't seen Jackass, it's like just men that like throw themselves off things and are surprised when they get hurt, basically. I can't watch it, I get sympathy pains like right down my body. But anyway, she was mostly just recreating those with her little brothers. And then there was one that is the most famous video that was on there, which is idiots getting electrocuted by an electric fence, it's called. That's not me saying they're idiots. I mean, they are, but still. In the video, Alyssa grabs hold of the electric fence and you can see that she's in pain, and then she tells the little brothers to do it and they follow, they hurt themselves, and on the screen she put up a caption that says something along the lines of, oh, this is the good bit, this is where we see my brothers get hurt, and she obviously thinks that's hilarious, thinks that's great. Her Twitter was also worrying. She'd talk openly about how she hated authority. She'd say that bad decisions make great stories. Her hobbies in her bios included killing people and cutting. She'd take pictures of her with like smeared makeup, smeared lipstick, and have her hand to her head like a gun. So that worried the detectives when they looked at that. So the next morning on Friday, which was 2 days after Elizabeth went missing, Alyssa was brought to the FBI headquarters for an interview. She was going to be interviewed by Sergeant David Rice, and just before he went into the interview room, he was handed Alyssa's diary. And the diary had been looked at under a special light where they were able to make the words a bit more clear, and they were able to pick out 2 new words, slit and throat. So he took the diary into the interview room with him. So Alyssa, her grandmother Karen, Sergeant Rice and a juvenile officer were all in the interrogation room. Sergeant Rice said that he deliberately was leaving big pauses and big moments of silences in between questions, and you know, if she wouldn't answer, he would just kind of leave it and let her sit in the silence, because silence makes people a lot more uncomfortable. He said you could see her eyes begin to tremor and her head begin to shake. So as you can see Alyssa getting more and more nervous, he decides to tell her then that they have her diary and they've read her diary, even the scribbled out section. Obviously then she knows that there's no way out of this, and she starts to tell the officers what happened to Elizabeth on that day. She says that they were walking in the woods when Elizabeth fell, hit her head and died accidentally. Obviously that's not what happened. Sergeant Rice then says, okay, but we're going to do an autopsy and we will see every injury that Elizabeth has. Because of what was written in the diary, Sergeant Rice asks, was her throat cut? And Alyssa just replies, yes. And Alyssa's grandmother just broke down. Her nan left the room and she started saying what actually happened to Elizabeth. She said that she was the one who actually sent Emma to go and knock for Elizabeth on that day, and then when the 2 girls came to her, she told Emma to go home. She took Elizabeth's hand and walked her for 15 minutes into the woods. She was saying to Elizabeth that there was something that she really wanted to show her, that there was a surprise, that she just had to go a little bit further and then she'd see it. Typical Law and a Kid stuff, horrible. Obviously there wasn't anything that she needed to show her. Alyssa was taking Elizabeth to a pre-dug grave and she had a kitchen knife hidden in her coat. Alyssa said that once they got to the hole, she started strangling Elizabeth. She strangled her while she was facing her as well, so she saw her properly as she was attacking her. She then stabbed Elizabeth 6 or 7 times in the chest and then cut her throat. Alyssa admitted to digging 2 graves 5 days before she murdered Elizabeth. A lot of people think that maybe she was looking to murder her own 2 little brothers after the fence video and everything. A lot of people think that that's why there were 2 graves, or maybe she was just looking for anyone and she was going to do it again if she wasn't found out. After the interview, Alyssa led police to Elizabeth's body and she knew exactly where it was. Detectives said that it wasn't very well covered. It was just covered a bit with leaves and obviously it was muddy, but Elizabeth was actually only a few inches under the ground and you could see her body parts coming up with mud all over them. It just was horrible. And when Elizabeth's autopsy came back, it mirrored what Alyssa had told them and also what was found in her diary. When they were able to look at the diary properly with, more special lights, I'm not really sure what they used, but they were able to look properly at the whole diary entry from that day. The journal said, "I just effing killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them, and now they're dead. I don't know how to feel ATM," which is at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now, lol. Obviously there was no remorse there whatsoever from Alyssa. So the murder was premeditated, which is usually a first degree murder case, but because she was 15, they needed to look into what they wanted to do with her because she was underage, she wasn't an adult. Alyssa was arrested and charged with first degree murder, and the judge ruled that she should be tried as an adult. Even though she confessed to the crime and led police to Elizabeth's body, she still pled not guilty. Alyssa's defence attorneys obviously pointed to her troubled childhood to kind of excuse what she did. She was moved to Hawthorne Children's Psychiatric Hospital for evaluation, and there she tried to still harm herself, mostly by using her nails, which then had to be cut down to kind of stop her hurting herself. She was also on suicide watch at this time. Alyssa's defence team were also able to get her entire confession scrapped because she was underage at this time, she wasn't an adult, and apparently some of the questions asked in her interview weren't allowed for a child. So the judge agreed and her whole confession was scrapped. A couple of weeks before her first degree murder trial in 2012, because it had been delayed so much because of Alyssa's problems and because of her confession being scrapped, all of those things, Alyssa accepted a second degree murder plea deal to avoid the death sentence. As part of that plea deal, she may get out in 30 years on parole. On February the 8th, 2012, Alyssa addressed Elizabeth's family. She said, "I know words can never be enough, and they can never adequately describe how horribly I feel for all this. If I could give my life to bring it back, I would. I just want to say I'm sorry for what happened. I'm so sorry." I've seen Patty, Elizabeth's mum, in an interview, and she just says it wasn't from the heart, it wasn't real, she was being fed what to say. Elizabeth's mum said that the sentencing was too light. She sued Alyssa for damages in 2015. This lawsuit also originally involved the hospital that Alyssa had stayed at when she first attempted suicide. Patty believed that they should have noticed that Alyssa needed more help than she was getting, and she believes that the hospital could have prevented this, but eventually the hospital's side of the lawsuit was scrapped by a judge, so it just fell to Alyssa, and Alyssa was sued by Elizabeth's mum for $5 million. So that is the case of Elizabeth Olten. All of Elizabeth's family absolutely hate Alyssa, which I cannot blame them for. It makes me so sad that Elizabeth trusted Alyssa enough to go on her own into the woods with her, because why would you do that with someone you didn't trust? And after Elizabeth trusting her, she just had the most evil intentions. A lot of people think that she probably would have gone on to kill more people had she not been caught. I've got to agree with that diary entry. She obviously wasn't sorry for it. I do wish that they had helped Alyssa more to, deal with her problems, and hopefully that would have saved her life. I don't know. It's hard to say, I wish they'd have helped her, because you imagine help as, benefiting someone, but I mean it as in, I wish they'd have helped her so, she didn't kill anyone. Does that make sense? I don't wish any good for Alyssa right now, but I wish that this hadn't happened to Elizabeth. I hope this makes sense. I know that if anyone's watched any of my videos before, you'll know what I mean, but if anyone is watching a video for the first time of mine and if I want them to think I'm supporting murderers or anything, no. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this case in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, click the notification bell so you're notified when I upload. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, it will be lovely to have you over there. I upload a new true crime video every Sunday, so yeah, please subscribe, help me reach 1,000 because that would be amazing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.